You didn't care what I thought.
No, I'm over you and your thoughts.
God. Well, we might as well end this podcast now.
Dang. Welcome to the Charlotte Buzz, where we drink beer from local breweries while telling stories about the neighborhoods they're from. I'm Chrissy, and this is Dru.
Make sure to stick around till the end so we can talk about the buzz bracket. Today, we're drinking Quebec IPA from NoDa Brewing. We learned how to say it from one of NoDa's fine workers.
His name is Wes. He is a fine gentleman who works at the IPA bar that NoDa has, which I'm a fan of. They have a separate bar just full of IPAs there. So multiple times now we've interacted with him and he's told us all the good details about flavor notes and all the things that we don't know. So Wes, if you ever want to come teach us how to actually taste beer, we would love to learn from you because your descriptions are very spot on and unconventional, and we like that.
Yeah, it's spelled Kveik, and he said to say it kind of like Quebec. Or
I'm giggling inside because I was a French major in college, and it just makes me giggle when people say that word.
Well, whatever. This is Quebec IPA. It's 7.5%. It is fermented with Hornindal Quebec, a traditional Norwegian yeast known for its ability to ferment at above normal warm temperatures quickly and with intense tropical flavors.
Which all seems very counterintuitive to what you would think when you hear Norwegian.
Yeah, I would think it'd need
colder temperatures or
ferment at cold temperatures.
Or less tropical.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you'll taste pineapple this time because it's tropical, not citrus.
Accurate. However, my taste buds are wildly jacked up right now because I've been sick all week. So I know y'all don't know me all that well yet, so I'm not sure if you can hear it in my voice, but it may not be pretty.
Yeah. It says, tired of the cold weather? Grab a pint or two for some summer vibes with this tropical, fruity, floral, and slightly hazy IPA. This Norwegian strain yeast.
I mean, it's so fitting, is it not?
Sure.
That's exactly what I think.
Maybe that's how they feel, though. Maybe that's why it's grown like that, because they want to escape the cold.
Maybe. All right, well, I guess I'll take a sip of this, even though I did well not to spill it this time, but it was a very full crowler, and so I had no choice but to... The only way not to spill it all over this table was to make it slosh into my cup, which left me with a whole lot of foam, so we'll get there.
We've had 2 crowlers so far, and NoDa so far has the most colorful.
That is very true. Sorry, y'all. I'm drinking foam. Straight foam right now. Give me a second. Okay, so I want to say light. Again, super informed tasting habits. I want to say light. Wes had said, what was it, bubblegummy?
Yeah.
Type of hops. So yeah, spoilers, I guess, is we did taste it when we picked up the crowler full of it as well, which, again, probably for the best because my taste buds are really jacked up right now. But he explained it or described it as kind of bubblegummy tasting hops, and that was super spot on at that moment. I can't quite say the same right now, but
well, yeah,
that's my bad.
I don't know about bubblegummy tasting hops. It just tastes like bubblegum. The beer.
Yes. I would say kind of light, fruity. I've had some like kind of champagne IPAs or like brute IPA type deals. It kind of reminds me of that. Like,
I'm going for it. You're too slow.
yeah, that's me. I feel like champagne always, the way I want to describe it is almost like an empty feeling. Like I almost feel like I'm drinking sort of like sour air. And that's kind of what I feel like.
Yeah, the dryness.
Okay.
I think is what.
Yeah, I just don't know the proper words to describe what I'm tasting.
Yeah. It's definitely got that. I'm not tasting as much bubble gum as I was there. I don't think.
I would agree with that. I also, again,
can't
trust my taste buds at the moment, but it may also be that we bought the Growler a couple of days ago now, so
yeah, could be
it's certainly not like spoiled beer by any means, but you know, definitely interesting. Worth giving it a shot. It's one of their small batch releases. If they still have it available, hop over to their fancy IPA bar. It's definitely worth it. So a quick little rundown on NoDa Brewery history is they actually started in October of 2011, officially speaking. Todd and Susie Ford are the owners and operators and founders of NoDa Brewing, and they have been homebrewing since about 1995 and actually won a whole lot of awards, like Hop, Drop, and Roll before it kind of existed as it is, won basically best IPA in the world as a homebrew. And they started kind of increasing their batch sizes and having parties and with their friends and stuff. And it was basically popular demand that got them to open a brewery. There's a lot of, they had won several competitions. A lot of their friends were now like calling for their beers and wanting for more. And with the financial market being super unstable, things just went all over the place basically. And they said, you know what, let's invest in ourselves, and took in their retirement and took as many investments as they could get and just kind of went all in on themselves. And it was a really big risk and a really big payoff, I would say.
Yeah.
So they officially opened in October of 2011. So they're coming up on their 8-year anniversary. And I mean, they are everywhere. They are the staple of the Charlotte brewery scene. And they had a lot of firsts. They were the first local brewery that was working out of two locations, all the things. Right now, they're only open in their Tryon location. They've been renovating and working on the original NoDa location. But I believe they were planning to open that up quite soon. So,
did you say Tom Ford?
Todd.
Oh, Todd. Thought it was, designer Tom Ford. I was gonna see if that was the same guy.
No.
Okay.
This man was actually a pilot. Todd Ford was actually a pilot back in the day.
Interesting. Hence the, what is it, Kavoo that has the pilot on the
Yes, sir.
on the can.
All right. So,
well, first,
in honor of NoDa.
Well,
okay.
You didn't let me say that this is in the it'll drink category.
Oh, you're right.
You just skipped me.
Yeah, my bad.
You didn't care what I thought.
No, I'm over you and your thoughts.
God. Well, we might as well end this podcast now.
Dang. Yeah, but the people aren't over you yet. All three of them out there, maybe?
Yeah.
Bub and Phil, I'm talking to you.
Yeah. But yeah, it'll drink, I guess.
I mean, question mark.
I mean,
that's the closest to it won't drink I've ever gotten from you. Is it that bad? I don't think it's bad at all.
No, it's fine.
All right.
There are much more better tasting IPAs or beers in general at NoDa.
Sure.
I mean, I had hotcakes while we were there, and I prefer it.
Fair enough.
And Hop, Drop, and Roll, the award-winning.
I mean, yes, that's the classic. That's the standard now.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's fine. I'll drink it.
It'll drink. I would say for me, it's probably middle of the road of my IPA scale, whatever that scale is. We need to figure it out.
Yeah.
But probably middle of the road. I've had ones that they'll still drink, but I really don't prefer them. Definitely not my favorite, but I would happily sit here and sip on it. But yes, I would say NoDa actually does hold several of my favorite beers at this moment. And yes, this one may not be that, but as a whole, the majority of beers that come out of NoDa, I'm super pleased with.
Yeah, you get their emails, and when
I
they're
creep
releasing
on
a
them.
new IPA, we go.
I creep on them pretty hard.
Yeah, we got to
Thanks
where
for
we
making
go
good
like
beer, guys.
once every other week now.
And we go there and kill 90s Nickelodeon trivia.
Yeah.
Kill it. If y'all want to repeat that, I'm in. Just saying.
Well,
It's my
favorite. They gotta do different categories. Maybe do
A whole
sports.
Hey Arnold category. I'm in.
Maybe do sports so I feel like I know something. Because,
Do you know something?
Because I just sat there and drank beer when you and Jackie answered those
You
questions.
got free beer and free prizes. What is the problem here?
There wasn't a problem. I just would like to feel smart sometimes.
I know how challenging that is for you.
Anyways.
All right, so since we are doing NoDa Brewing Company, obviously there's no way to not do the NoDa area, which, if by chance you don't know, which I imagine is quite hard these days, but NoDa is for North Davidson, the main street that runs through the area, and so it just got shortened, and that's now what we call the neighborhood.
Yeah. No, duh.
Duh. All right, so what do you have to tell us about it, Beer Man?
So I'm going all the way back. We're going to start with colonial period,
Oh, wow.
just to get the story started right.
Okay.
North Carolina followed the English precedent in caring for the poor. So the old common law recognized an established religion, and so it was up to the parish to oversee charitable work. So I pictured Disney's Robin Hood and the Friar Badger thing going around and handing money to the poor.
Yes.
So I imagine that's how it was then.
Okay.
It,
In animal form. It was the animals doing it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, badgers.
Yeah.
Native to the
Charlotte area.
North Carolina Piedmont.
Okay. Naturally.
But when North Carolina became independent, the responsibility for care of the needy fell to the county instead.
Okay.
So the county decided, you know what? Let's have wardens of the poor.
I really desperately wanted you to say Wardens of the North, and I just went straight into Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, wardens of the poor.
Okay.
So,
Fair enough. We'll stick to reality.
Yeah. So they were elected by voters, wardens of the poor, until 1846. So 1777 to 1846, there were wardens of the poor on your ballot.
That's so strange. Like, the amount of, I guess, like, public offices or positions that people would vote on versus what they would just be hired into then and now. I'm intrigued to maybe look into what the logic was behind that and what caused the shift. And I just find that interesting.
I think the shift was like sheer numbers, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't have enough.
I could see that, I guess.
There's too many people, I feel like, to vote on everything. Like, when you have a smaller group of people, democracy's easier.
Sure.
So when you get larger,
there's a lot more offices that need to be filled and a lot more turnover and all kinds of things that can affect it. Fair enough.
So that was until 1846. And after that, they were just appointed by other people who were elected.
Oh, okay.
So
kind of like the cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay.
They, in 1868, the boards of county commissioners handled what the warden of the poor would handle, which I'm going to talk about. But then they actually created a board of public welfare in 1917. So
Okay.
we got wardens of the poor, and then the county commissioners did it, and then they actually had a board of public welfare in 1917. But these wardens of the poor oversaw either indoor relief or outdoor relief. Sounds like indoor plumbing and outhouses, but it's not what it is.
I was like, yeah, I don't even know what.
Yeah. So indoor, I think you could think of it as inpatient and outpatient.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay.
So indoor relief, outdoor relief.
Yes.
People who could live on their own, but they were given a pension,
Okay.
so to speak, by the county. So it's kind of like your own welfare.
All right.
That's the thing, right?
Sure.
Welfare?
Yeah. Yeah.
Food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
It's like food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
And then indoor relief is where NoDa comes into the story.
Tell me more.
Indoor relief was provided to the county's poor that did not have the means to live on their own. This meant the county had to build a home for the poor to live in. Mm-hmm. So in 1833,
Okay.
a building called the Poorhouse
Hey.
was opened, and
Is that not a new like Hoppin' but in
Yes.
Plaza?
Yeah. So not the Poorhouse P-O-U-R, but the Poorhouse P-O-O-R.
So not beer related.
Yes, not
Shame.
related.
Okay.
They should have opened the poorhouse where the old poorhouse was, and then it would have been like
Super clever. I
the
like
poor
historical connections.
house.
We're idiots.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So it was located 2.5 miles east of Charlotte. I'm assuming they're talking about uptown Charlotte. Somewhere there were a couple different locations that it could have been on, I found.
Okay.
But just to sum it up, it's on North Davidson Street, between the street and the railroad tracks, somewhere between Heist and the Evening Muse.
Okay.
So that little strip of land is where it was located. Probably owned all the land there.
Yeah.
But
And this was 1833?
yeah, 1833.
Okay.
So somewhere in between Heist and Evening Muse.
I'm just, obviously I'm talking about very similar locations, and so I'm just trying to picture it and then put some historical timeline in my brain with what I have to talk about.
Well, I may help you later. We'll
Cool.
see. So anywhere between 6 and 28 paupers. I think
Ooh.
that's how it's
Yes.
pronounced.
Yes.
P-A-U-P-E-R-S.
Yes.
Lived there according to the census for a while. I think that was census data from 1850, 1860, 1870, and 1880.
Okay.
So anywhere between 6 and 28. In case you don't know what pauper means, like I didn't, I found the definition. It's either a very poor person or someone who received government relief or public charity.
Which, I mean, yes is technically different, but kind of more or less the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it started with the poor folk in the 1800s, and as time went on, it kind of transitioned into people that other people didn't want to take care of.
Okay.
So you had old folk who their kids didn't want to take care of them. They went and lived in the poorhouse. Mentally ill people went there. And I think there was, I don't know if it was in Charlotte or not, but a poorhouse had like a blind kid. So I have in my notes that it was basically a homeless shelter, orphanage, retirement home, and psychiatric hospital all in one.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard enough for like a family. Obviously, they're like kind of kicking these people out of their homes because they don't know how to care for this one person or don't want to deal with the hassle of caring for this one person, and then putting them into this sort of institution that is cool, care for this, one person, but actually care for these couple dozen people who all have very different ailments. That's nuts.
Yeah. And the fact that there were only 6 to 28 is either a good thing or it just tells you how few people were in the Charlotte area.
Yeah.
Not sure which.
I think a little bit of both.
So, because I feel like 28's not that much, but depending on how big the home was,
Right.
you know. So, it's a homeless shelter, psychiatric hospital, all that. And you may have heard of Dorothy Dix before.
It sounds familiar, but I certainly can't, place that name.
That's kind of where I was at. I was like, I know that name, but not real sure. Well, she was a reformer from Massachusetts.
You just assume because she's up north that I know her.
Yeah.
That's like people looking at you and be like, oh, you were in the military. You know Bobby Joe over here, right?
Yeah.
Duh. I know
Probably.
every person. Sorry.
So she was a reformer from Massachusetts.
Maybe Jackie knows her.
We can ask.
Okay.
Can I finish my sentence?
Maybe. I'll think about it.
Dorothy Dix was a reformer.
From Massachusetts?
Yes.
Huh.
How'd you know?
I don't know.
She made it her special cause to improve care for persons suffering from mental health challenges.
Finish sentence. Woo!
Yeah, barely. She toured states to make note of the often deplorable conditions in which the insane were held.
Mm-hmm.
So, we probably wouldn't know what deplorable meant, except for recent political events. So now I know what that means. And I didn't look for a definition of it, but you can figure it out.
Not good.
So her travels brought her to Charlotte in the 1840s.
Okay.
Was taking notes and didn't specifically note Charlotte, but in a report sent to the General Assembly of North Carolina, said that people were found incapacitated by mental suffering lodged together with the poor, and argued that even the best poorhouse was no fit place for the insane. She said that the mentally ill were simply being isolated and restrained. So that's no good.
No. I mean, I could see, especially in that time period, how that is the case.
Yeah,
but
especially if they have, that's not what they're there for.
Right.
That was not the original
nobody
idea.
has any idea how to handle any of these people except for people who are financially unstable. Like, actual ailments are so foreign.
So she sent that report to the General Assembly and asked them to build a state hospital, which they must have taken seriously, because right after that, they decided to build 2 state psychiatric hospitals.
Rock on.
And you think, this will alleviate the pain. But those hospitals filled quickly, and the counties were still in charge of the overflow.
Of course.
So the poorhouse still had its problems and had problems throughout its whole history.
So basically, its original intent, it never was able to serve only its original intent. And even after resources were brought in and changes made to accommodate all the additional requests on its existence, it still caught all the overflow. So really,
nothing,
in essence, in their little bubble, nothing changed.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it only was able to hold, do its originally intended duties for the first little bit.
Yeah.
Like when there were only 6 people.
Yeah.
I feel like once you start seeing the 28 numbers, families realize that they can just hand off their family members to the poorhouse.
Yeah,
and they'd be taken care of.
Getting a little more socially acceptable and more culturally normal.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much from the 1830s to the 1900s. I feel like it was just a home. I didn't see anything specifically about the Charlotte one, but people would come by and like use some of the folk for labor.
Okay.
I think it was, I mean, if it was the intended use of just poor people, then that would work. But I don't know about the mentally ill if they were forced to do anything of that nature.
Right. That wouldn't work so well.
Yeah. So about the turn of the century, you know, this house has been here. I actually think they built a new one, but on the same site, somewhere in there. But those two homes had been there for 70 years, and they decided to build a new one out near University area.
Okay.
And it was basically a farm. And there was mention of it being called the Poor Farm.
Yeah. Yikes. That's not like degrading at all.
Yeah.
That sounds both like super degrading and like, well, kids, we sent old like Spot to the farm.
Yeah.
Like,
send them to the farm.
Oh boy. Yikes.
Yeah. So it was like a dairy farm. They had some hogs.
I suspect some cows.
Yeah. Dairy farm.
Oh no.
I thought
it was a joke.
Yeah. It wasn't pork milk, pig milk. It was cow milk.
Pork milk.
Nothing like good old pork milk.
Yikes.
That's how I eat my Lucky Charms. Do you not?
Oh.
Pork milk.
Oh. Gross.
So that's where the history ends in NoDa for the poorhouse. 1902, the county sold the site to the Highland Park Manufacturing Company.
Yeah, don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, I just stopped there.
Very good. Because that's where I'm going to pick up. And I'm going to kind of flip that coin of going from the, I mean, not so much the unintended repercussions of elderly and mentally ill and disabled and whatever, but the original intent, and go from the unemployed, financially unstable part of town to flipping that coin to creating NoDa into these mill villages and all of these employees and building up the area through employment community.
Yeah, and if you build a nice employment community, you have less poor.
Huh.
I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand.
Novel concept.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right, so at the turn of the century, in the 1900s, we have the Highland Mill Park number 3. I don't know where the first two were, but number 3.
Well, raise hell, praise Dale.
I mean, true. In 1903, maybe that, I don't know. In 1903, it was a textile mill that came into the NoDa area, and it started developing this community and, I don't know, just kind of almost like a family atmosphere in the entire NoDa area, which, for the record, at this point is still just being called North Charlotte. None of it was actually called NoDa until much later on. I don't believe the street was even called North Davidson until much later on either.
I didn't say this in mine, but the road that was there was just called the Poorhouse Road. So.
All right. Yeah, I believe, I didn't write any of this down either, but it was called something else, just kind of like a random street name during the mill period as well, and didn't become North Davidson until much later as well. But I do have some notes about the naming of it. That'll come a little later. But so, 1903, Highland Mill Park number 3, textile mill, built, brought in a lot of families to work at the mill. It was one of the first to be electronically, which, nope, to be electrically driven versus like using the waterways and everything that we kind of primarily think of with mills. And we also had very soon after the Mecklenburg Mill came in and was built as well. And so We had kind of on either side of NoDa, we had these two different mills that just popped up, built their own little housing communities that surrounded it. And it was primarily these little, almost like villages that were strictly the people that worked at the mill and their families. And so overall, it was just a very large community vibe. It was a very safe feeling. And it was very community spirit, team effort, let's work together for anything involved. Like, it was, I mean, quite frankly, it almost sounded almost like socialist in nature. Just, everybody knew each other, everybody worked together, lived together, that it wasn't exactly like governmentally socialist or anything, but it was just very, we're all here to help each other out and we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
And so it was a very safe community. It was very, that was just the overall feeling of it.
Did they have their own currency? Like Henry River Mill Village?
I'm not sure, actually. But something I did want to make note of is I thought it was interesting that each mill kind of had its own little dynamics. And even though we had two mills right next to each other and full-on communities right next to each other that kind of worked in tandem and just built a greater community feeling, they were kind of distinctly different in their own rights. That the Highland Mill Park number 3 had very distinctive housing that came out of it, and all the houses were very similar. And I spent a lot of time actually thinking about Henry River Mill Village that we had gone and visited, which is a really cool place. It's kind of a historic site, and they're working to build the, I guess, historical landmark nature of it. Yeah. And they shot part of the Hunger Games there. It's District 12, people. It's actually pretty cool. Go visit it. But when we went there, all of the houses were exactly the same. Yeah. And that's kind of what this was, is the mill park had its own type of housing that was all pretty uniform. And then the Mecklenburg Mill actually had housing very similar to the Atherton Mill in Dilworth South End area. And I'm not exactly sure what those houses looked like, but they were distinctly different. And so I just thought that was interesting that you kind of have these very...
Yeah, I bet you the Highland ones at least are still, some of them are still there. Because that one, those right across the street from like Heist, there's like that tattoo place. Yeah. The building, the house, little house looking thing right next to it is very similar. So I bet you those are some original.
What we now look at as like Main Street in NoDa was actually this street that connected the two mill villages, basically. And that was that was like the business area. It had drugstores, grocery stores, dry goods, doctors, pharmacies, all that kind of stuff. And that was kind of the connector of the two communities. Which there was one specific, they mentioned a specific hotel that the building still stands, and it's like 2 streets back from that main street. And from Google Maps, it kind of looks like just like a rundown building, but it's actually has, bad for our business, but it has a web designer listed as someone who works out of that space, which ironically didn't have a website. And I thought that was funny. But nonetheless, that building does still stand. A lot of the buildings on that main strip do still stand, which I'll get to that as well. But I also wanted to mention the kind of competitive mill, the Mecklenburg Mill that came in secondary, was actually made by B. Lawrence Duke. He was one of the top investors, shareholders in that whole process. And he was actually the heir to the Duke tobacco fortune. Which again, I'm not from this area, so I don't know a whole lot about that, but I know that's a big deal.
From Durham, maybe?
Perhaps. And then his uncle was so interested in the hydroelectric properties of the mill, which again, the Highland Mill was the first that was just electrically driven, but the uncle of the Mecklenburg Mill was so interested in all of that, he was actually a predecessor to the Duke Electric Company that we now know. So I thought that was a very interesting tie-in.
Yeah.
that you go from like Duke Tobacco to this mill to the electric company. So it's kind of the NoDa is more or less where we get the foundation of the electric in this area.
Nice.
So that was interesting.
It isn't a electric place. Eclectic. Electric.
Those are not the same thing.
Well, they sound close.
They do.
I know they're not the same, but I thought it would like tie in a little bit better, but it didn't work.
I see what you're doing.
Trick.
So anyway, Main Street in NoDa was what kind of linked these two different mill villages. And like I said, drugstore, groceries, dry goods. It also really made me think of when we went to visit Henry River Mill Village. We got a chance to go into the pharmacy, drugstore,
Company
bank.
store.
Everything was in that one building, which in the Hunger Games was where Peeta threw the bread out into the rain for Katniss. So go check it out, people. It's a really cool place. So there was a place called the Hand Pharmacy, which was the owner was his last name was Hand, so that was where that part came from. But that was kind of the central location on that main strip. A lot of people went there, actually mostly excited about the ice cream and soda fountain that they had there. You know, staples of life, which was actually something that they noted at Henry River also. One of the kind of main attractions outside of work was this little like food cart and like snacks and treats and sodas and things.
Yeah.
So I just think that's also an interesting kind of note about mill village living, I guess. That those are the kind of highest prized things outside of
back then too. I mean,
yeah, it's definitely a novelty and everything else.
soda
but
fountain was a happening spot.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
And that it was like consistently that, regardless of where you're at. But I wanted to specifically note the Hand Pharmacy.
Is it a pharmacy for hands?
I mean, if you cut your hand, they'll fix it right up. But he actually, the family owned a pharmacy just a couple houses down from where they ended up kind of being finally located. And then after a few years, they chose the location that they moved into because it was brick. It was more longer lasting, but it was a huge building for what they needed. And so we actually envisioned the second floor as being kind of this meeting place, which, again, super similar to the Henry River Mill Village kind of breakdown of that location. And so I'm wondering if this is just a normal, like, I'm wondering how much communication there was if this was just kind of the layout and pattern of all the mill villages, or if to a certain degree this was coincidental, because, I mean, how strong was communication in developing these? I have no idea, and so I find it interesting. But it didn't actually kind of pan out into being this big meeting room in the upper floor like he had wanted. And so for the most part, it ended up being some storage, and then there was a doctor that used that space to kind of see people, go figure, with a pharmacy downstairs. But eventually, over the years, they sold that building. Like, they made it through both World Wars, the Depression, all that. And times got really tight where they just weren't paying themselves. They weren't getting paid for the medicines and things that they, divvied out, but like struggled through it, made it fine. And eventually he ended up selling it to a former employee, turned it into another pharmacy. Down the road, it turned into, I believe, more like a city pharmacy. And then it just, changed hands to a bunch of different businesses the years that followed that. And currently, the building still stands, and it's Cabo Fish Taco.
Huh.
So that's pretty cool, which walked past it a dozen times. I've never actually been in it, but now I'm a little more intrigued to go eat and see what it looks like inside. But I thought that was pretty cool. And so one thing I just wanted to note is that the kind of original, we're looking in this sort of 1900 to 1950 period where it was very community vibes. You've got these two specific little villages sort of connected by this business district, which is now like downtown Main Street NoDa. But it was very similar in a lot of ways to what we see today, with just, all kinds of little community pockets. And then you've got this main strip of attractions and things going on. It even had a trolley line into uptown Charlotte. And so I'm like, oh, we've got the nice Cats extension, everything going. And so it actually mimics, like present day mimics the past a lot. And then
more painted garbage cans now, though.
Much more artistic. So that's where we get, so both mills were sold in 1953, kind of ended that era. The neighborhood started shifting. We started seeing a lot of newcomers coming in. It kind of seeded this distrust within the neighborhoods, and these pockets started getting smaller. It was no longer everybody that you lived and worked with, but all these, people from everywhere coming in. And so it was no longer the safe, what did I say before? Kind of socialistic view anymore. It then became much more divided, and then in 1969, construction for Matheson Avenue came in, and that created a actual physical divide between part of the area and the rest of it, and it brought in all of this extra traffic, and it just entirely eroded that community feel. That any remnants that were left were just completely gone by then. And so we actually saw another decade or two of deterioration of the area. And then in the 1990s, we started seeing the art scene pop up a little bit more. And just before that, in 1985, we had two artists, Paul Sayers, probably butchering these names, but Paul Sayers and Ruth Ava Lyons, that started working through, they were artists, they bought a little kind of gallery studio and renovated the place, and then started kind of picking up the building next door and renovating that, and then the place next door, and trying to redevelop the area. And so it was renovating what was already there. They weren't like tearing down and totally redoing. And it was this whole beautification process that's kind of attributed to them. And they actually won a Historical Charlotte Preservation Award in 2003 for all of the impact that they had. And they were also recognized with a governmental award for that impact that they had on the area and the community at large. And so that's kind of the process that we still see NoDa going through today in trying to preserve its history, maintain the kind of artsy vibe that had been infused into the area, and then still kind of repurpose and renew into the upcoming years and seasons. And I kind of totally bypassed this in that history lesson here, but got to give credit to Steve Holt, because he is the person who is credited in 1995, which was much later than I expected in history. 1995. He is the one who was credited for calling North Charlotte NoDa. Oh. 1995.
Oh, Steve.
And so he was an artist and a studio owner, and I assume, again, take that with as you will. I assume it came down to, let me sign the corner of my painting type of thing, and just mushing it all together, called the street he was on NoDa, and it just sort of stuck.
As a person who likes to use abbreves, I applaud his work.
But yeah, he's the one that's credited with it, at least. Obviously, I can't say fully how true that is, because you never know. But 1995. I mean, again, I'm not from the area, so what do I know? But
I mean, I was sick, so I couldn't tell you anything about that.
It just seems significantly later in time than I expected it to be. But overall, we're still kind of in this beautification process, these repurposing process, trying to redevelop and preserve the past. But like I said, I thought it was interesting that we started off with this kind of poor area, and then we turned it into this mill village, and so everybody in the area was working, or at least part of this community that was growing and developing it. And then what that community looked like at that time, with a few pockets of community and a connective business lane and just kind of the hotspot of town, a link into uptown, just mirrors what we have today so prevalently. And yes, maybe the pockets are a little bit smaller, maybe they're a little more scattered, maybe the businesses do not mimic the same businesses that used to be there.
Yeah.
But
But
as a structure, it's very similar.
It's always had like a grunge.
Right. And that's why I think it's really cool that we are still trying to kind of upfit it a little bit.
Yeah.
But keep the entire essence. And I think even just generally, structurally, subconsciously, we've kept that structure from over 100 years ago. And, you know, the face may look a little bit different, but I think we've kept its nature much more thoroughly than we expected to, or than we think we are. And I'm still excited to see how it continues to grow and preserve at the same time.
Yeah, stay grungy.
Yeah.
I was going with like the stay classy San Diego.
You stay classy, San Diego?
Yeah. Stay grungy. NoDa.
NoDa. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
But I think it's really cool. I think the NoDa area brought us, one, a community that still thrives very similarly to the way it did it 100 years ago. But also was kind of this foundation for our electric, I forgot to mention. I'm on top of it, guys. It's Cold Meds. Cold Meds and beer is a great mix, guys. The Highland Mill Park, number 3, is actually now rentable.
Yes, you can live there.
Yes. So they repurposed the area and created it. The words have lost me now. They repurposed the area and made it into apartments and lofts that you can now live in.
Yeah, they're called the Highland Lofts.
Yes. Go figure. Which I had to look through it a little bit because I just wanted to see what they would say about it. And fun fact is they have a saltwater pool as one of their amenities.
That's not that uncommon. Our pool that we had when I was growing up was a saltwater pool.
I've never seen a thing in real life.
It's just used instead of chlorine.
I have never seen one in real life. Like, maybe it's just where I'm from. Yeah. Maybe not. I'm not sure, but...
It's not like ocean water.
I mean, I get that, but it's something that was like a novelty in my head. I've never seen one in real life. I thought that was a really cool idea. But that's a thing. The Mecklenburg Mill it was actually turned into low-income housing, which is kind of bringing us full circle. But I believe that had to be condemned. And so now I
think they ran out of money.
Yeah, and so it ended up being condemned and they were all basically evicted. But it got to a point where it's a historical landmark. And so I think it's just kind of sitting and waiting while they're trying to figure out what's possible, what they can do, and how to work within all those parameters. But those mills both do still exist in the area. One you can live in and swim in apparently a non-novelty saltwater pool. And the other is just probably some great pictures that you can go take until they figure it out.
Yeah. I think I've only been like towards Mecklenburg Mill to like turn around. Mm-hmm. Like I've never been like really past there. Like I think
I've definitely seen it plenty of times. Yeah.
Like we walked and then turned.
We use that as the turnaround point.
Yeah, for like Salud. And then so we like parked.
Yeah, we good.
Yeah. Hadn't.
Yeah, we need to go explore there a little bit more now. But I mean, it's the same thing with anything. If you don't know the history, you're not as intrigued by it. And so you're just like, oh, that's a rundown building, whatever. But I'm absolutely more intrigued now. So
yeah.
Cool. So that's what we've got in the realm of NoDa.
Yeah.
And
speaking of Salud and NoDa
and beer,
they are on our buzz bracket.
What? If y'all have stuck with us since day one, this was what Dru had told me about. He made a friend on Reddit.
Yeah, Jason.
And we have so many fun things coming. I'm so excited for this. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Jason had a idea to do a beer bracket.
A brewery bracket.
Yeah, brewery bracket. So you rank local Charlotte breweries or just...
We match
Charlotte
them head to
area.
head, and you vote on who wins that matchup. Yeah. And we put it together in a bracket because March Madness.
Yep. So we're calling it Buzz Bracket because this is the Charlotte Buzz.
Hey.
And starting right now, you can go to VanGoCreative.com/buzzbracket.
VanGo.
Links will be
Creative.
in the description. And you can fill out a bracket or print off a bracket to fill out by hand if you like doing that. And
Completely free to enter.
Yep, free to enter. Anything you get right in round 1 will be worth 1 point. Round 2, 2 points. Round 3 is 3 points.
What?
The
Madness, this logic.
The semifinals, final 4/final pour.
Dad joke puns all day.
Is 4 points, and then if you pick the overall winner to be correct, then that's 5 points. And we add that all up. Whoever has the most points will get a $100 gift card
Hey.
to the winning brewery.
And the winning brewery gets the Golden Growler.
Yes, it will be a beautiful trophy that will be
fancy.
coveted
Yes.
by whoever wins it.
Yes. So the brackets are available right now. VanGoCreative.com/buzzbracket. So go fill yours out. It's totally free. You have 2 weeks to get your bracket filled in. It needs to be in by end of day, March 14th at 11:59 and 59 seconds point blah.
Yeah.
That will close, and anything that is submitted after that will not be accepted in part of the competition. So you've got 2 weeks on that. And then
They're probably like, "Hey, how do they win though? How does each brewery beat the other brewery?"
Well, that's what I was about to say.
Well, tell them.
So y'all get to vote on it too. So you get to influence if you win or not, really.
Yeah.
So get your friends involved. Basically, we will be putting up in our Instagram stories and Twitter polls. All of our social media will be putting up those little either ors. Yeah. So you can vote on which in the matchup you want to win. And we will tally the votes. We'll give you each week. We will preview the matchups here on the Charlotte Buzz. And we will then say, hey, voting is now open for this round. And we will put those up. It will be open for the next, say, 5 days, I believe.
Yeah, 4 or 5, yeah.
And you'll be able to go in and vote on all those avenues. There will be a thread on Reddit that Jason will be leading that charge as well. And we will tally all the votes after that. We will record the next podcast and tell you who the winners are for that round and preview the next round's matchups. So if you want to make your bracket the most accurate, make sure you're voting on all of those avenues and make sure you get your friends involved to vote on all of those avenues.
Yeah.
Get them involved, have them fill out a bracket too. The more the merrier. You have the power to influence this. It's your votes that count.
Another way you can enter is we don't have everything set up yet, but I believe we're going to try to do a brewery meetup.
Yes.
Through the Reddit, the Charlotte Reddit. You can meet us and fill out a bracket and hand it to us there. We'll bring some brackets with us. We don't have any details on that. We can get that to you as soon as we know, though.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be fun.
$100 to the winning brewery is on the line.
That's
free.
That's a decent amount of beer.
Yeah.
Like what? Like $5 a beer? $6?
Yeah.
That's like 20 beers.
Yeah. I mean, if you get a growler, that's like
It's like
3.5 growlers.
That's like 2 nights of fun.
2 nights. I'm like, unless you're me and you're a lightweight, that's like a month of fun.
Yeah. And that's, another thing, a reason to get people to vote is you win the $100 to that winning brewery. So you better pick a brewery that you like and get votes for them, because then you get the $100 to that.
Right. Plus, you can go to that brewery and be like, yo, man, I see that golden goblet over there. Goblet. I'm going Harry Potter in this.
Oh, my God.
I don't know where my brain is at.
Golden Growler.
Thank you. You'd be like, hey, man, I see that golden growler over there. I helped you win that. Look at my bracket.
Yeah.
Fa-kink.
You must feel real proud to have that Golden Growler.
You might could talk him into a free beer. I can't make any promises on that, but you could try. You never know.
The coveted Golden Growler.
Mm-hmm. You can walk around with pride saying, I did that. And Drew just really likes the whole thing because his last name is Golden. And so he's like, that's right. That's my growler.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be
his
creating it. So,
but we're excited. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And we're hoping it turns into a thing so that every year we can go through and do it again and make it something bigger and better. So help this inaugural Buzz Bracket be something amazing and win a crap ton of free beer for spending 5 minutes clicking some buttons online.
Yeah.
It's super easy. You literally just click your picks, get all of your picks settled, type your name, type your email, submit. Take you 5 minutes.
Done.
That's it. VanGoCreative.com/buzzbracket. Links will be in the description and everywhere else that you're watching or listening to this. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. And
comment, subscribe, all that good jam. Download.
Write
this
some
podcast.
reviews, likes, comments.
Anything. Tell your friends.
Definitely get your friends involved
Tell your
because
family.
it's really in your hands as to who wins this thing. So
Tell people you don't know.
support the community, guys. All right, so that's all we've got for this week. And next week, we're going to start the first round of previews. We're going to preview the first half of the
1 through
matchup.
16.
And then the week that follows, we will do the second half of matchups. We'll preview all those. And then all your brackets better be in because voting starts then, guys. 2 weeks. I'm excited. But yeah, we'll see you all next week for our regularly scheduled programming. Bye.
Check you later.
Question mark. No beer, though. And then in 2 weeks, we'll start the first preview of matchups, guys. No? 2 weeks.
1 week, we're doing 1 through 16.
Shit!